that you're about to join the session.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. I'm assuming you're running it out of, in Canada. Do you speak French?
Yeah, when you force me to.
Hello.
Yeah.
All right. You're not sharing your screen yet, correct?
No.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, here we go. Oh, yeah, today's going to be a good session. I can feel it already. It's going to be a lot to discuss and a lot to go over.
That there is.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I'm quite actually looking forward to it.
Pat, Becky, Helen, and Jada are also coming to this meeting just so they can get up to speed on what's been going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to having as many people as possible in on this one in particular.
Sounds good.
Hope y'all will excuse my lunch. Well, I guess Maru will.
I'm finished. I'm wrapping up.
I got a ham sandwich right next door. The quickest,
Maison?
yeah, quickest food you can get. We were scrambling until about 12:40 trying to get the store done.
This week was just very hectic and compressed, so.
There's going to be tons of people coming. I'm sure we don't have enough chairs. Here, I'll open.
Are there, okay. Is there anywhere else you can get chairs from?
Other offices.
You can grab them from my office.
Okay.
I don't know. We just added 2 more people, so.
So is there a way to set smart sheets so we can see if other people are able to see our sheets?
I guess you have to log in as one of them. But I changed all the settings. I just made it group settings.
No, I just want to verify.
There's no login after the smart sheet. We just have to be friends with going to log in and show us what they see.
Okay.
I'll do it with Christine. Actually, I saw Christine. All Christine could see was the workspace.
With my share, it's easier.
Because I did it over.
I'll remember which one to bring back.
Skype.
You've already verified it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will double check with her next time I meet with her.
So they can't see our sheets, but we can see everyone else's sheets.
Oh, yeah. We actually are doing
Looking good. Sandwich is looking good, my friend. Where's it from? Oh, good
They
bread.
can see the ones that are
Good looking
in the
bread.
workspace.
Pickles?
They won't see the ones that are in other workspaces. Like I could see
your own
workspace.
Get your own.
Because I'm administrator.
I got a little
and
sourdough.
So when you go in, this is the one I thought you used to.
So good.
If you go in,
I've never gotten
smart
bread
sheets
at
at LSD.gov,
Is it a baguette?
all the workspaces.
No, it's just like a big, like,
Oh.
yeah.
They make sourdough baguettes here at
No, they each have their own login.
Team DeLuca that are
I mean,
pretty good.
but they also.
How much
have-
are they?
How much do they make?
They're not too bad.
Okay.
I told you.
They're not too bad.
Anybody can eat, you just move.
No, they're perfect actually for, so is it just you and your place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been looking for a good baguette, please.
Oh, that's it?
Okay. I'm slightly scarred by them because I went there looking for tortilla chips, and it was like a normal size bag, and I was like, how much is this? Expecting like
$5?
slightly overpriced, maybe $5. It was $8.50. I went to the CVS like down there, and it was $3.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but pick it from this Mexican, not every chip is a chip.
I don't know. Oh my gosh, that's so small. Oh, wait,
No,
Maru's there.
Who's running the computer?
Yeah, who's running the computer?
No, Pat.
Oh, okay.
This is just connecting. Pat's on the screen. He sometimes will ask me to do stuff. Pat, do you want to sit at the computer in case I need to show anything else? I just didn't think in this meeting you don't have to.
Sorry, what?
So you need me at the computer here in order for me to, like, do something from our end, or?
No, I think I'm good. I got both the surveys, the polls that we were going to use for the 2 portions of the meeting all set up. So, I think we're good. Yep.
Yeah, I think we're good. Okay.
Do we have everyone?
I believe so.
All right, so we have a full room.
Oh, these are open.
Oh, yeah, Carlos is there, you can sit there.
Oh, yeah. Carl's not, so.
Yeah, you can take.
But we don't,
I'll take this
you
one.
don't have to drive.
Yep, okay.
All right, settle down, settle down. All right, so we're ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so unless there's something anybody else wants to say, I wanted to start off by addressing the group. Yesterday, I have to start by saying yesterday I took quite a hit to the my level of confidence to be able to perform results on this. One of which was like personal parenting thing, has nothing to do with what's going on, but a couple other things happened, and with gear set and change sets all along the lines of this user story that was not delivered today. I have to take some responsibility in how long it took to get that user story over to internal testing. It did get resolved, but not by using gear set or in the traditional way that we're looking to get it done, or using change sets fully, because there was an issue with custom metadata types from DLRS not showing up there. So I had to do a traditional change set. It did not go to the branch. It didn't go through the full workflow. So that really bothered me yesterday. So that's what happened yesterday. I woke up kind of grumpy about the whole thing. First thing I did was figure out what was going on with gear set. So now gear set's resolved. It's working as I expected it to from the get-go. And yeah, so a few things happened from that perspective that helped me get back on track as far as, okay, is this going to, deliver results for the group? Maru, yesterday, thank you for stepping in to continue that meeting when I had to step out. Very much appreciate you being able to do that. I think you guys got through 12 user stories. So grateful for that.
You're welcome. Your solidarity.
Yeah, yeah. And, a few other things happened that, got my level of confidence. Okay, yeah, this is good. We're good. Specifically around the user story that wasn't delivered today, though it was not delivered, a lot of the key elements that agile development, is all about is making sure it has a prescribed workflow, which we more or less followed, and there's a group of people collaborating, so it wasn't just like, Bindu was on her own. It was like we all jumped in when something happened. I was calling. There was a lot of back and forth. And so that's one of the key things in Agile, and it happened in that particular user story. So, everything seems well now. I don't have my grumpy face on anymore. And I just wanted to address the group and say that's where my first feedback is as far as how do we do. There's going to be an exercise for that, but I wanted to kick it off this meeting with that to begin. Do I still have you?
Yeah,
we're here.
All right. Okay, so the first exercise is to do a level of security. So we have set up a poll everywhere for that. So let me just bring up that screen and I'll zoom in. Actually, you can probably see it with how much it's zoomed in. So you have two ways of inputting your level of security, how you feel, and sharing your thoughts and opinions about this project. You can use, can you read this, by the way?
Yeah.
When poll is active, respond. Yeah, we can read the line.
Yeah. So they text that to, so they first, you have to text this to this. And then it'll ask you for a response of 1 to 5, how secure do you feel? And then we'll get a live feedback on that.
Message 237.
This one, what is the name? It started
728.
Thank you.
Is this how you start every meeting? Like how you feel?
This particular one.
Yeah, for the retrospective.
The retrospective.
This is a type of different type of agile meeting.
And then we pick, it remind me, 1 and 5? Yeah, 5 is the
Yeah,
most.
5 is the most secure.
How can you tell that everybody voted, by the way, or that you're done?
Well, count how many people we have in the room.
Okay.
Are we supposed to, we're supposed to text
Text. So first you establish yourself by texting Pat 278 to the number 37607.
Pat, you're gonna be one short. This is Jada. I didn't bring a device.
Yeah, no worries. So here's
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Sprint.
oh yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Cigar. Thank you. It's just on the one.
So I had on the screen, I actually used the demo like a trial thing, so you can see what's going on. So you type this to that number, and then it gives you a response, and then you can say 1 to whatever it is. So you can put a.
Full action.
You haven't opened it apparently. Pat.
Yep.
Oh,
Have
mine
you
went
done this
through.
all week?
Uh,
No,
Because the last one was in person, so we were trying for something.
oh, okay, so try it now. Yeah, I just had to click this button.
use my minutes, Pat.
And then,
I think it's an important part of the process.
oh, there we go.
There we go.
So, how confident, on a scale of 1 to 5, how secure do you feel in sharing your thoughts and opinions about this project? 5 being very confident, 1 not at all.
Okay. So what do you do after that?
We talk about it. It's just to get a sense of where we're at as a group. Are we like engaged in the process? Are we, collaborating as a group in the process? Get a sense as to, a pulse to kind of get yourself primed for sharing. Okay, here's what we learned. Here's what we had issues with, that type of thing in the next exercise. This is a 5-minute exercise just to get a pulse, and then over time we should be able to get a, on a graph, what was our level of confidence in the project over time, right?
If you put a 1 though, if you don't feel okay to share your thoughts, then are you really gonna say something in a meeting?
No, but he knows as the Scrum Master, he needs to know what to ask.
Yeah, like
Okay.
if there's a whole bunch of people saying 1s, 2s, and 3s, I have to address that.
Yeah.
Right. If it's typically 4, average of 4 or above, it's a healthy level of.
One sec, Pat.
Sorry, Pat. This is Helen. What I was saying is the retrospectives were not done the last time around, so that the consultant never bothered to know if there were issues that could have been identified much earlier on because the team either wasn't confident in how the process was working. So that's part of the reason why we're doing this. So, okay. This way of doing it is new. But
Well, and I have to take some, okay, so we don't have post-it notes that he can see. So the fact that our Scrum Master is separate from us in a room, we had to come up with a tool to do the exercises.
Sure.
And this is the one we came up with.
Yeah.
But it won't take us long every time, because I think that's the text. We are now participating, so I don't think it's a new one every time. We'll just reuse it every time, but I'll verify that with that later.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a suggestion.
Yes.
I think we might be better off if we're not looking at that graph updated self live. We've got, conversation going on. Someone might get identified as providing an answer that they don't really want to be publicly identified.
We could also just make a decision to do this polling before we walk in the door.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
that
think it would
makes
be
sense.
effective. I don't think it's about who's in the room. So it's not.
Okay, yeah, just send it out as a matter of course. Laura or Maru, can you take that as a do? Who's ever in charge of the instrument, make it happen.
Right, but if it doesn't happen as part of the meeting, I don't think it's equally effective. Because
Oh.
the mix in the room changes every time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Okay. That's fine.
Obstacles, people. All right, I think we're done. Do you have everybody?
I don't know how many people did we have in the
Oh,
room?
so we have 8, 7, no, I'm sorry, 8, 7, how's that? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12?
No.
No, so,
I'm not
we have
voting.
13 minus 2 people that didn't vote.
Minus
Four.
4.
Minus 4 at least.
Okay.
9.
So we should have 9 votes. Looks like.
Yeah, it looks like we're good. Yeah, it's predominantly a level of 4. Looks like we have 1 at level 3, but lots of 4s, lots of 5s. So it's very healthy right now. Okay, so the next part is to use another, let me just get that one up on the screen so you can see. It'll be somewhat different. Now, the only issue with this one is that there's no way to, is there actually, let me just double check here. In my testing, I don't know if there was a way to do this via, yeah, it's only web-based. So, so, yeah. So this one is,
Okay, we can figure this out at some other point. Let's continue with the meeting.
yeah, well, this is part of the meeting, so I'm
Okay.
not sure how to address this otherwise. So the next part is to say how do we,
I thought you were talking about logistics. Continue.
yeah, so you can either have it as stickies if you don't have a way to respond, but you can do this from your phone as well. You would go to this particular website. So if you have your phone, the mobile interface is plenty to manage this as well. It'll look something like this. And so now basically you put in some responses to how did we do this week? What did we learn? What puzzles you? Along those lines as far as things that happened this week. So does everyone have that? It's this, there we go. So I'll move this over here and I'll start. And we'll go for about 5 minutes on this. Okay.
Do people need the link again?
I'll write it up here.
Okay.
Call EV. Oh, I got it. CallEV.com. That's on Tuesday.
It's 728, Maru.
Huh?
728, not 278.
Thank you. During the new year.
Well, this is respond, but yes, I believe. Yep, I'll get that for you.
But, I did everything in one.
I did everything in one too. I didn't know I could submit. one.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we
then
know
work
that
and
for the
learn.
next
I'm
time.
from Chicago, I voted off that.
There you go.
I can't tell the difference between people on their phone and people still entering, Pat. Can you tell?
Yeah, I
there's a
still
couple-
see a couple coming in.
Okay.
Some of these are pretty funny, actually.
Submit that.
Bless you.
I guess it went.
Bless you.
Okay.
Are you going to show them or?
Yeah, if everyone's,
Oh.
does anyone need more
I didn't
time?
know. I think
Anybody else?
everybody, is there somebody, okay, so.
Anybody need more time?
Phones down. I don't know how to do this privately.
Anybody still working on this one? Just ask.
I think we're done. Is everybody done?
All right, I'm calling it. You're done. Okay, so here we go. So everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
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 Yep.
All right. So first comment was not puzzled yet. So that's a good sign, I suppose. Process still seems to be slow moving. I think everyone can agree on that so far, that it feels somewhat, I would say it as feels somewhat clunky still. Doesn't feel smooth and or refined, which at this point I wouldn't expect it to be. Anybody have anything to say about this particular comment?
I don't have anything to say about the particular comment other than I'm remembering the process, having to, if you decide to have one, we're supposed to solve it, or how we're going to do it differently next time.
Sorry.
Do you want me to take any notes in the room?
Well, we're going to want to make sure that in each of the items that we review that we've discussed it and make sure can we take anything and make it an action item, right?
Okay, got it. Gotcha. Oh, that's what you wanted. I understand now. Okay.
Yeah. So, last time we had a whole bunch that got generated from this, so I'm expecting a whole bunch from this as well. So next time around, we should see a completely different set of concerns or things that we've learned, to which the process should be that much better.
Okay.
So this comment just basically points out that there's still lots to learn, and there's lots of things to put in place with a refined and fully matured process. Because in my experience on my side of things is, just GearSet itself, didn't work as I originally expected it to, based on the filter not spitting out way too many changes when it should have been like 12 on Bindu's user story. It spit out thousands, and I'm like, no, that's not possible. There's some tweaks that need to be done with the out-of-box filter set. So now it's working. So, GearSet being used next time ought to be a clicking experience versus being a perplexing experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my feeling on. It very much mirrors this statement.
I guess my question, Pat, hi, this is Lynn. Why was that?
Sorry, what's that?
Why was
GearSet?
It needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so GearSet comes with filters on what to look at with differences and changes, and lots of those things have nothing to do with what actually needs to be tracked for changes. There's a whole bunch of things that in Salesforce, regardless of what the developer does, are going to change no matter what when you create a sandbox, because it's local to that particular sandbox. So it has nothing to do with any change whatsoever that whoever was doing development on. It's just extraneous metadata that really ought not to be part of the source control anyway. It's just that GearSet doesn't limit what you have access to compare, but it should, with its default filters, go with the common things, not the things that are off the radar for most any project. I don't know if that answers your question, but source
and
control
you were able to
tracking.
do that by
Sorry,
going
Peter.
through manually. You were able to do that by going through manually and setting up your own filters, right? That'll exclude that extraneous step.
Yeah, so that's what I had to do.
And now that work's done once, and it should stay done, right?
Exactly. Unless we start like using something that's not in the filter set that I didn't foresee, which is quite possible. But I went with all the standard, metadata, so I shouldn't expect anything else.
All right.
I don't. Anybody have anything else to say about this particular?
Where are we though? Your cursor we're in gear set still?
Oh, the discussion was about gear set, but it could be about anything as far as it being slow moving.
I don't see the full screen, that's why I thought you were going to scroll down.
Oh, yeah, no, we're just on the second one here, so I'll just pin them so that we know which one we're done with.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Yep. So the next one is called Communication Was Good. People seem to be learning the Agile process. I'll second that one.
Yeah.
Yep. On communication, a specific thing that you brought up earlier today, Pat, chat would be a good way to communicate in some of these fast-moving situations. So I don't know if everyone on our side of the project is set up with Skype for Business and the chat client there. It's I suppose it's as good a chat client as any. I don't know. It's certainly what we've got. And Pat, I don't know what you've got and if that's going to be compatible with us.
Yeah, actually, I have an email chain that I have snoozed for tomorrow morning to see if I've got everything from everyone as far as being able to get you guys on chat. But yeah, that's a good point. I think that if it's Skype for Business, I'm not sure if you can Skype for Business with people outside your domain or not.
We have been testing it with mixed results.
Yeah, so that doesn't sound very good.
So we'll say no.
Well, we've only got one person outside of our domain, so if it works for that one person, then we're good for this project.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, Peter, can you try adding me? I've got Skype. I don't know. Do I need a separate account for Skype for Business?
Let's find out.
Let's find out later.
Let's start out with what you've got.
Right.
All right. Yeah, I have it as an email, so it's snooze till tomorrow morning, so I've got it as an action item. Okay. So the next one is, yeah, I already talked about this one. Gear set filter settings are immediately usable out of the box. I went over this pretty well, discussing. We did well. I would agree. Though no user story points were achieved, I think as a whole, the Agile development process was being learned quite well. The progression of that, which is my measuring stick in this project, was very good, in my opinion. Anybody have anything to say about something else about this? I'm not sure.
Well, I'd say yesterday's backlog grooming, you had to step out. It continued pretty seamlessly, and I think that's a testament to everybody sort of being on board and being aware of what the process was expecting of us at that point.
Right.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to review the call, but that's reassuring.
Yeah, we had some discussion early on after you left about, okay, what are we supposed to be doing now? But that resolved itself quickly.
Having had the training ahead of time, it certainly, I think, helped us all figure out, okay, what do we do? Mm-hmm. And when we all came to agreement pretty quickly of what we needed to accomplish in the same time that had been allotted. So
yeah, and we all knew which cartoon character we corresponded to. So.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, cool. Okay, good. The next one is have been getting better at entering user stories in proper format. Well, I can attest to that because every time you make a change to any user story, I'm the default person who's watching these things, so I was getting notifications on both my Jira app and my email, like just every time there was an update, it was just ping, ding, ding, ding. So yeah, you guys, I saw them all and they were all in the right format. I mean, I saw some with a placeholder for something, but everything was in the as a this, I can do this, so I can have that. So it was spot on.
Oh, you mean like while we were doing them?
Oh yeah,
Backlog?
when you make a change.
Oh, well, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. I want to see those changes. Sometimes it's a bit of a nuisance, but it's better that I can take a quick glance see if there's something that I need to point out or address. But yeah, there wasn't really anything other than one, but I understand why it was written that way.
Here's a process question.
Yep.
So as the product owner, do we need to wait for these meetings in order to jump in and craft the user stories?
No, absolutely not. No, you're
okay.
free to. And I saw Adam putting in some in himself as well, which is very, very good. We're straight into the user story format. Yeah, there's no reason why. Product owner, and it doesn't stop at product owners either. If someone has an idea that's part of the team, there's no reason why a developer, a tester, anyone can't put in a user story. It'll be the product owner's responsibility to choose which one's next, but...
Okay.
Adams were part of the testing, by the way. Capture had gave him the choice of adding those stories.
Oh, really? Right there in Capture?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
that's slick.
associating them with I cannot live without Capture anymore.
Oh, wow, that's really slick. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was very slick.
Cool. Okay, so that's why he was like, I was seeing them like get pinged out fairly easily.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah. This one goes to. Sorry, does anybody else have something?
Yeah, this is Bingo. I was just with the testing feedback after today, which I received. We had some questions, so I don't know whether this is a meeting that we want to see what's the next one process, or we have something else.
Are you talking about which user stories we'll be working on next, or something else?
The issues from the testing feedback were created as separate stories.
Yes.
Separate stories or Jira tasks.
Well, no, well, okay. So let's address that question. If it addresses something that wasn't initially part of the user acceptance criteria or part of the original user story, then yes, it should go to a new user story, right?
Okay.
But if something was missed to address one of the user acceptance criteria, that one of those tests, then not to create an issue, but to make sure that it's clear what was missed in the capture itself.
Okay.
Right, so that when you get back to it, you would create new tasks to address that, and then go through those tasks and then send it back through the process.
Okay.
Four criteria were not met. Therefore, a new comment and task was attached to the existing story. 3 new things were found out while we were at the forum. So therefore, 3 new stories were added to the project.
Okay. I couldn't see the task, but I saw the comments with the capture. So just want to.
You can't see this, but I got 2 thumbs up with smiles, so. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is we were able to craft actual user stories quickly. Well, it goes along the same lines as the other one, proper format, and we already talked about how quickly you guys kind of transitioned into that. So that one's pretty much the same as the other one. This one's one I talked about. It has to do with story user 59. Workflow doesn't accommodate historical reassignment when sent back to started. In other words, 59 was originally assigned to Bindu, but she assigned it to herself. She did the work, sent it off through the process, and got to Adam. And Adam rejected the test because of those 3 things and those 3 captures. But it doesn't dynamically reassign to who it was before that. So that's a bit of an issue. In other words, it'll always get one of two choices right now. Stays assigned as Adam or reassigned to me. And actually, there's the third choice I'm looking into where there's some another add-on for Jira allows you to do some of this automation. In other words, we can set it up to record who was the developer and who was the testers for situations when we need to go back to that developer and have it assigned back to that person, right? So I'm looking at a tool. I'll get back to you whether I think it's going to, I'll try and get the trial, test it out, and see if it's something that we can do, because if it's along the same lines as the other ones where it's like $10 a month for the group, well, that's a no-brainer in my opinion. So we'll see. I'll let you know about that one. Learn the importance of clear user acceptance criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So is that to say that they were clear or they were not clear?
I didn't put that in there, but I would vote for that one as well. I know that if I had written that one, I'd be comparing it to last time when we really didn't know for sure what we were testing, right? But because we've written the criteria at the time of the user story, and that was in a checklist within the task, it was clear what we were there to test.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing a fist pump, so.
Well, what?
Now I'm doing a fist pump.
Okay, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there for the testing.
I thought
but...
it was clear enough. Could they have been clearer? I think so, yes. Because we're working with a checklist mode, sometimes they're a little too short, and then a week and a half later when we're testing, it's like, what did we need to say here? So.
Okay, I don't have a fist pump.
But that didn't happen very often, I don't think.
All right. Well, I mean, it's a little bit more time is basically will be useful when creating these acceptance criteria for, and that's everyday note taking and task. I have to do the same thing. Like if I don't write down with a whole bunch of notes what it is I'm supposed to do next week, I'm like having the same experience. Okay, what was this about? Yeah. So it pays dividends to do the acceptance criteria. Is longer is better. Typically, more notes the better. I think it's pretty clear. Any other feedback there? Did I lose you? Everyone silent?
No, we're good to go to the next one.
All right. Okay, is keeping minutes a part of the agile process? How do we document what we do at each meeting? Okay, well, what we do at each meeting is pretty well defined. Minutes, well, I record these sessions, so there's that. But as far as action items, that's not specifically part of the process. Like there's a specific format to follow in any way in that. There are all sorts of ideas on how to, take care of that. But as far as action items, I think this is part of what's being discussed as far as minutes. It was probably a good idea to keep action items at least as part of the minutes. It would be fantastic if a complete set of minutes was kept. It's just a little bit of duplication of work if we do that, because a lot of these things, well, most of them anyway, will end up as part of some of them will end up as part of either a spike or a user story or a task on a user story. So I guess, keeping minutes would be necessary because there are going to be a whole bunch of things that don't go in Jira. Does that make sense to everyone? Did I just sum it up or not?
So I know that a lot of things are documented in Jira, but not everybody on our team or people who need to know what's going on have Jira logins.
Yep.
So I've been taking some notes at meetings, but I don't have the knowledge or, some things I catch other people's or other people understand things better than I do in terms of notes. So I just started a Word document in our box folder for what's been, or I only started it last meeting, but I know a lot of things are happening in Jira, but I think that it still should be documented somewhere else, just sort of in a more like clearly at this meeting we did this, as opposed to, I think in Jira it's more with user stories or with tasks, right?
Yep.
So it's hard to tell on October 10th we did this.
Yeah, and it serves, a pretty traditional process where like minutes are kept, action items are reviewed. It would probably be a good thing, especially at the Sprint Retrospective, where we review, the previous week's action items or the previous sprints.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I'm not too keen on it. It sounds like it's establishing a parallel process, which is not clear that how that's going to benefit.
Well,
So I guess
this was not done before. Again, we're doing most of this internal now, which is a benefit to all of us because we have the people we can ask, hey, what happened, who did what? This wasn't done before. So then we were trying to figure out when certain decisions were made. If they weren't documented in Jira and they were done by phone at a daily meeting with
You're
a
talking about
component.
contractual decisions? Because really all the decisions.
No.
I'm sorry, let me finish. All the development decisions we're making are in Jira.
They are right now. They weren't back then. So that's the problem.
And so we're spending a lot of time investing in Jira. So that's why I'm asking, why do we want a parallel process to that?
Yeah, and I agree that we don't need to parallel what's in Jira elsewhere. I do think it's useful if at the retrospective, somebody like Lara is taking notes about action items, just so we have. I don't think it should be something you all are doing
Is this what you
separately.
mean? Every meeting.
Yeah, and recall that not everyone has Jira, right? So sometimes there'll be, some other tasks that are taken on by someone outside the team that is a stakeholder.
Well, so I guess my perspective is that, like Laura said, the stuff in Jira, which I don't have access to and I don't need because it wouldn't mean anything to me, is super specific and in the weeds.
Yep.
So if I want to know at the end of the week, okay, where are we, what's going on, why did things happen or not happen, meeting notes at a more of a high level, kind of like what's on here, to Maru's point, which is we don't have a completed user story for these 4 or 5 reasons, and we talk through them, and here's what, that's the level that.
But that sounds pretty in the weeds, for which you would probably want to get on Jira. If the information you're looking for is, are we tracking at a decent pace?
Yeah.
So that's different than how many user stories did we hit.
No. I just want to know, like, I know that we don't have a completed user story, right? And just at the beginning of the meeting, Pat said, well, there were some issues with gear set, I've resolved them, blah, blah, blah. So how is that information being memorialized? So that we know, hey, in week 1, we didn't have a completed user set. The big picture reason is we had to work out some kinks with gear set. Like, that's at a high level that's not memorialized in Jira, from what I understand.
And for purposes of contractual risk mitigation. Is that what we're talking about?
From my perspective, yes.
Okay. So then that's not something the project team that's deep in the weeds of Jira needs to be concerned with.
Right, so but as everyone is in the room now, we need to establish how we're going to and who is going to be responsible for maintaining that information. Because someone has to.
I have 2 suggestions. One of them was what Pat has on the screen right now actually will be saved. So to some degree, all those things that you have just inputted there actually historically will exist in that account. And we can look back at everything that was brought up at a retrospective.
Yeah, but my notes from
not the outcome. This
is what people wrote.
Right.
But that's not, if I read that means nothing.
We had more conversation. So like the item about communication was good. We had a conversation about using Skype for Business and whether Pat can use it or not. That's on there now, but that's because we started writing things. That's like, if you look at that, you have no idea.
I started a flip chart, Pat, to give you context in the room. I started a flip chart where when we were, the outcome of the discussion, I was putting it on the flip chart with an action item.
I'm sorry, I think we're still talking about different things here. I think what you're talking about, Becky, is documenting process flows and project management milestones, et cetera. Is that right?
And this is a piece of that, in my opinion. The answer is yes,
Okay.
and I think that this feeds into that.
So are you
This is
asking
more
for-
detail of that.
Sorry, what I heard you say earlier, you were basically asking for bullets like this, for each of the retrospective meetings. Is that what you said? I may have missed it, but bullets
I'm
like
thinking, okay, so from lessons, Helen, why don't you?
Simplify. I plan to come to every sprint retrospective. I will take you.
Fine.
And I will save them because I can do that, and that's no problem. And that won't impact what you all are doing. If you need to do this for purposes of your team for whatever reason, so be it. But as far as what we're talking about,
Yes.
you and I can work together to do that. I'm only going to the retrospectives though. So, and the reviews, I think.
I think I'm in the review.
And what about creating just a dashboard that tells you about the sprint health with some bullets about why that might look different from one day to the next or 1 week to the other?
Isn't that what we're doing where we're tracking velocity and?
Well, they're in Jira, but because people are not in Jira that want to know what's going on, it can be like an email that can be drafted with a quick snapshot of what is on Jira that day, at that moment.
I don't think we want that level of
No,
detail.
okay, I agree.
I think once a week to know sort of what these retrospectives are every other week.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, to check in on that, that's fine. I agree with Helen's approach to this.
Okay.
Does that need to, so we've got the retrospective covered. Are there any other meetings for which this needs to happen?
I think the review as well,
Okay.
right? Because that's when we have like Becky and Lynn here.
The work that's accomplished in your meetings every day is captured in Jira, right? This meeting and the review are looking back on summarizing that work. So we need to somehow memorialize the summary of that work, which is what Helen and Laura will be doing. So,
Who's the project manager?
There is no project manager in Agile. It's,
okay.
Yeah.
so
But
there's
that's
accountable
how
stakeholders.
Yeah.
DLC is different than running projects.
Yeah.
There
Yes.
should be a project manager. Okay.
So, I mean, in agile development, there's a couple terms used that take leads in parts of the project, so to speak. There's the ownership of the project, so that's the product owner who decides what is needed in the project or in the product, which order it's going to be done in, and then there's a scrum master who is the owner of the processes used, making sure that the group follows those processes and the group works well within those processes. Right, so that would be me. So product owner was Carlos and Lara, and then there's Scrum Master myself. Then there are stakeholders, so Helen and Lynn and Rebecca, and then there's various other people in the team, so developers and testers, right?
Yes,
Those are the
it's
roles.
a different approach. It's lacking because there's
That's
more
right.
than software development here. Projects, you're doing the software development piece here. A project includes everything from rollouts at the end, and that's not at all taken into consideration by this software development.
Well, it is in a way, and I don't want to get, when we meet at 2, we'll discuss that, but this is for the software development, but ultimately Carlos, because he is the product owner, is responsible for rolling out the GAR. So he's ultimately the program manager for the GAR because that's.
So if I'm the project manager for this process,
You're not the
then
project manager for
then
the
I'm going to
process.
approach it really differently and wear a different hat in addition to my product owner hat.
But okay, we'll just discuss it separately because it's a different approach than how we've done other things here. But in terms of when you say rollout, he sends out the GAR to the grantee rollout because he does that, but it's a different thing.
Okay.
Okay, what's next?
All right. So to circle back to this post, it seems like we're going to have an action item to ensure we keep minutes so that we can keep action items.
Right, so I wrote, the result of the conversation is recording minutes and action items at retrospective and planning meetings is an action and Helen has taken it.
Yeah, and there will be some duplication, but it's good to have a rolling accountability from retrospective to retrospective.
We have to consider the audience that's reading the material, and so there's two versions of the same material. There has to be, because it's not all the same audience. So that's why we have in the retrospective and the meeting minutes and action items. Okay, next one.
All right. We learned a lot about how processes work in detail. We learned aspects of the process that aren't 100% finalized and how that impacts the workflow. I can attest to that as well. Already talked about gear set being not 100% finalized. And similarly, the SF org data is not 100% finalized. So yeah, those are all things that are in flux that will be worked out. My commitment to this process, as far as the processes being documented and work and having some walkthroughs, is by the beginning of next sprint.
And just as a time check, we have 10 minutes, by the way.
Wow. Oh, really? Yeah. So just make sure that that's one action item for the minutes. That documented processes and YouTube walkthroughs are the primary pieces.
Okay.
Anything else on this one?
Nope.
Good. Next one.
Learn how to navigate Jira. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, some of the things that I find kind of cumbersome, like adding a subtask. The first time you do it, you got to go in this weird little drop-down menu at the top right where it's going to be stored in the middle of the page eventually, and then you can use a plus sign. That seems weird. But other than that, it's a fairly well-designed user experience.
So Pat had two questions on Jira. One was when I wanted to create a branch for one of the tasks, it didn't create a branch for me.
Did you click the link on the bottom right or the button on the top?
Bottom right. And it shows there is a branch, but it doesn't start the process, change the workflow from whatever.
Okay, so let's take a look at that afterwards, but it's a two-click operation. One to set up the create, so it brings you to a screen with everything ready to go. And the second step is to click the button to create the branch in Bitbucket. So if you want to try just make a test user story and try that again, let me know if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, it did for story 59, but not for 108. So that's one thing. And the second one in Jira was a code review.
I know what that is. Sorry. So Bitbucket disregards. It doesn't look for any validation issues. In other words, if we don't estimate it, if we don't put an estimate, 1, 3, 5, whatever, it'll create the branch but not subsequently move it forward because of validation, but it doesn't show the user, hey, you still haven't put an estimate on this. So that would be that would be why, or it should be why, the only reason why it wouldn't move into started.
Okay.
Okay, so
yeah. The next one was the code review. After I finished the deployment, we thought we would have a second step of code review, and that didn't happen. Right?
No, there's an intermediary step. There's a step in between that goes to me, and then it goes to code review.
Oh, okay.
Yep. There's a step in gear set that should take it from the sandbox to integrated, which is to run the automated tests. and once that's passed, I can push it with gear sets to full SB at this point, and then you would be able to see the code review. Oh, hold on a sec. No, I'm skipping something. But there's an intermediate step either way.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We can discuss that in more detail later.
Yep. Our tools are most helpful. I'm glad we have them. Jira, Capture, learning on the run burns me out.
Yeah, I'll step up to that one. I didn't know that I could do separate submissions, so I put my both thoughts in the same one. So our tools are most helpful. I'm glad we have them. I was referring to Jira and Capture, and that was one submission. And then learning on the run, burns me out. That was my deal. Sort of like, okay, so now we're going to learn how to pass a story after it's been tested. Okay, I think this is how you do it.
Yeah.
But we're learning the workflow automation on the fly, right? You tested it, but we didn't play roll it. So we're all sort of functioning in the workflow with a certain degree of faith that it's going to work.
Yeah. And I'd be lying if I didn't have a certain degree of faith as well. It's not as if I'm like, yeah, it's 100%. There are tweaks that I've yet to find, I'm sure, that need to be done, but my level of confidence in knowing that it will be figured out is very high.
Okay, next.
How much time we got left? We got 5 minutes, so we're not doing too bad. Additional tools and processes are helping the process get refined. Yes, agree completely there. That's a positive, so not really an action item unless someone can think of one. Nope. Next one. So.
I think
Fine. Need to learn more. I think that's abundantly clear. A lot of that will be resolved with the process being finalized with a version 1. I know that'll be version 1.1, 1.2, but the bulk of the processes, which is to say, here's all the tools we're supposed to use, and here's those tools in action for a user story from A all the way to Z for those steps. So once that's done, most of the learning will be available, like what you need to learn will be available as documentation or walkthrough. So that'll help a lot in this process. So it just goes to add to this statement. Yeah, this one. Set up data in Dev Sandbox. Worked on user story 108. Worked on user story 59. Learned working with Flow, how agile workflow works. Puzzled about how to estimate the story points. Is that? Oh, limited?
Limited display.
Yeah, so...
yeah, that's what I felt this time, that story points were not really where we could get it right. We're learning
it's subjective. It's group subjective. So eventually we'll all get used to the certain level of points we get used to. Like other groups might consider a 3 in our group, an 8 in their group. That has no relevance to what we're doing. So long as we stick to a certain interpretation of those story points and stay consistent, a 3 is going to be like a fairly simple user story. It's got a little bit of a day's work at most kind of thing. That's the way it feels to me anyway. We just get used to it. There's no specific definition of how to estimate. It's group based and subjective.
I have a question. Something I just heard you say though is that the workflow needs story point estimate in order for it to work.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
not a nice to have. It's a must have. Because something broke down, they didn't have this estimate. So I thought estimates were just to help us manage, but it isn't. It actually, the workflow needs it to work. So.
I made it a validation rule on the workflow itself. It's not like every user story implementation in Jira has that by default and must be used. It's something you can put in place. It's like you can have it auto-assign to Adam when it gets to internal testing. It's things that are good practices. In other words, agile development, one of the key things is you got to have user story points. Otherwise, you don't have velocity. If you don't have velocity, you can't start to predict, how far along you're going to get in your series in the backlog, if you follow what I'm saying. So, yeah, you really should not do agile development without it. So I made it a requirement going into the starting of any user stories.
Okay.
Collaboration was constant. Merge of 108 into 59 as it was deemed necessary in the development group, and it didn't make the user story too big to begin with. So it was merged. It made development a little easier because there was a lot of common elements being worked on. So having them in one sandbox made it easier. 59 being resolved for testing as a group this morning. So there was a back and forth collaboration. So I put that down myself.
We had a question about that merge that maybe you can clarify for us. I know
Sure.
From a development perspective, it needed to be merged. From a user acceptance testing, we were wondering if the criteria was also merged, or did the other one not have criteria?
No,
the
they were
criteria
merged.
was also merged.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Criteria and these subtasks.
Okay.
And you can move subtasks from one story to another. And
Oh, what do you know?
So, good.
Cool. Learned how to use Jira Capture for UAT. Very cool. A lot of great features.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's a really good tool.
It really does facilitate testing, I think. Well, and communicating properly back to the development team, more importantly than that.
Yeah. Deployments are taxing, aren't they? They can be. They don't have to be. And that has to go, LSC, you guys have, allowed us to buy tools that will make this significantly less taxing, much, much simpler. And that goes to, it'll rely on making sure that I have the process documented and have the workflows and the walkthroughs in place. Once that's done, that statement goes away.
So we are buying the deployment tool.
Here's the deployment tool.
Yeah, we already bought it.
Yeah.
Yep. The next one I put in. Sorry, someone going to chime in there? Or?
Sorry, Pat. Just to mention that in the deployments today, just discovered that flow and process everything would not be activated automatically. So that's something.
That's a manual step. Unless we can make GearSet do it.
Interesting. Yeah, so I'm going to take an action item on that.
Yeah, I just gave it to you.
Because they were not active, we couldn't see the validations in first place in the first test.
Yeah, all right. So you got me as an action item on that reactivation of process builders and flows on deployment. Yep. Mm-hmm. Cool, great, thank you. The next one I wrote down. We got like 1 minute. We're over by a minute, so let's quickly finish this. Calendar schedule versus sprint schedule dates weren't in line. Maru, you pointed this out, so that was my mistake on that one. It just had to do with like the Friday, Monday, Tuesday inavailability in our first sprint. So this shouldn't happen again, and I'll make a note of it to make sure that they're in line, because sprint dates are specific to the sprint itself. Like you set them in Jira, whereas our meetings, we're doing those in Outlook and Google Calendar. They have no restrictions on when you set those, so they weren't in line. So I'll pay particular attention to that going forward. We did okay in terms of learning process and addressing spikes. It was frustrating not to have a completed user story, but there was a lot of progress made. Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy way to sum up a lot of what happened this past week and this past sprint. And I think we've covered everything.
Can you go over what development was done?
Can we go over that?
I guess, or should I say, say, shut up, Lynn, and look at Jira.
No, I mean, there's things that we did do. We did do some spikes. Let me just go strictly right to the active sprint, and let me scroll, zoom in a second. If you want to stick around for this, I think are we done on the?
That go-to-meeting interrupted whatever you were saying. So because there was an automated message that came through.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we're done the feedback portion. I'm assuming, unless someone has something to say about this one or something to add to this.
No.
Well, I guess the question that Lynn had is, is there a way to summarize what did get done this week?
Yeah.
Well, I think but
yeah,
there was development done.
Yes.
Right.
And there will be testing done.
And there has been testing done, and there will be more of both.
Okay.
Yeah, so the one user story that was 2 user stories got merged into one. We had some issues. It failed the test, which is exactly what we would want to happen in this particular situation. It gets pushed back, and we manage it appropriately, whereas in the past, this would have potentially, I still have to do it, but it didn't go back into a sprint. It wasn't structured in a way that it automatically followed a specified process. Right now, what's going to happen is this user story is going to go directly to the top of the list. Likely, usually that's what does happen because it's rare for the priority to change that quickly. So this will likely be the first user story, to which is the first thing that Bindu is going to work on, and it should be ready for testing early in the next sprint. So there's no way to miss something, whereas this happened quite frequently in the past where user stories fell through the cracks.
Is there any? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to mention, because this was like just 2 days sprint, and we wanted, if we had another day, maybe probably by Tuesday we would have done a sprint review for sure for the sprint.
And I know that this was the mini sprint, but is there any concern that the overall timetable is going to be affected by having to add this into the next sprint?
Well,
It's an iterative process. We need to establish clearly the minimum viable product, and we need to work iteratively through these user stories. We'll get through, the work. I'm saying, based on what I've seen, that we're going to get through the work and be ready to go live.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a sense as to the level of effort because I haven't spent as much time with the user stories themselves, so I can't really chime in. But as far as the process is concerned, I'm feeling quite confident. As far as this, velocity, it already starts to feel like 30 or 40 with the current group. If I had to guess right now, user story points per sprint. Yeah, conservatively, I would say. And all this to say is that there's the whole accountability as to what happened on this user story is kept. Like, you can see everything that happened to this user story. This is one user story, and these are all the things that happened to it. Whether it was comments, whether it was changes to a field, everything. So there's lots to go back on. There's accountability, and there's a process to make sure that everything gets done.
I just want to add that this was a mini sprint, and this is the first one. We had to do a lot of setup, which was involved more than development. That took a lot of learning and getting things set up rather than just start working on something. Right. So that was the major drawback, I guess, for not getting something done.
All right.
Okay, well done.
Is there anything else?
That's the Sprint Retrospective.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Ciao.
Cheers.
Okay, take care, Pat.
For a meeting about defining the MVP,